We are back with another episode of The Impact Show. And today, I'm wearing the gray hoodie. It's not every episode I wear a gray hoodie. But when I wear a gray hoodie, beware all Impact Show listeners. It's about to get serious. I've got my man, Larry Indiviglia, in the house. One of the deepest souls that I know. He's one of my best friends, and it's great to have you on the show today, Larry.
Todd, in the new digs at Todd Durkin Enterprises Global Headquarters, like right here in the roots, man. It's just awesome to be here.
Great to have you wearing the hoodie. It's going to be a great day, and we're talking about the 10 forms of wealth today. The 10 forms of wealth. Gosh, it was probably a decade ago. Wouldn't you say, Larry? Larry's the king of like dates. He probably knows it was like October 12th, 2011.
Well, you know, pretty close. You know, it was 2010, that year of impact. You know, where you laid out the seed, you know, for the 10 forms of wealth.
Okay.
And like many things you do, T, you embellished it, tweaked it a little bit over the years, but here it is, 10
Here
forms
it is,
of wealth.
and we're
now.
going to share that today because the 10 forms of wealth is something that I do religiously every month. And Larry said, TD, I want to actually go through some of these with you and share with the listeners today about the 10 forms of wealth. Not so much that you hear my answers, although you will hear some of my answers. I want to challenge you while you're out running, walking the dog, cooking breakfast right now, to think about your answers for the 10 forms of wealth. Now, let me clarify. Wealth does not necessarily mean money. It could mean money, but wealth is a state of mind. Wealth is a harmony. Wealth is fulfillment. So let's get that clear about 10 forms of wealth. It doesn't necessarily mean money, although one of the 10 will be financial. It's really about encompassing all of life, a 360-degree comprehensive whole addressing of life.
Absolutely, Todd. And, you know, we start off with maybe the one that's the cornerstone is spiritual wealth. And especially after the last year, do you think, like, just generally people under all the restrictions of COVID, they were challenged. Churches were shut down. There was restrictions. Do you think many went into their spiritual side at home more? Maybe they could do it virtually through virtual church. Some of them were able to do a hybrid. Where do you think most people were at as far as into their spirituality? And how did you approach it during the last 13 months?
That's a good question. It's a great place to start, right? With faith. Spiritual, number one, spiritual and faith component. When you look at it just from a church perspective, the last year has been very, very interesting because in having the opportunity to work closely with several different pastors of churches and seeing how those churches have operated during this time, one thing that we all know is that all businesses, including churches, have had to evolve and change and grow. Yeah. And that they did. I mean, who would have thunk that Pastor Jeremiah at 80 years old would be going live streaming on Facebook and taking his congregation made up of all ages? But there's a lot of 70 and 80 plus year olds in there. Yeah. And he told me that it was growing from like thousands to tens of thousands of people per week. So the online side of the church grew for several churches. Then I'd have guys like Pastor Miles McPherson in the Rock Church, who I work with weekly and have throughout the pandemic on the church side. I think here's how I'd summarize this, Larry, is from a personal perspective, there's never been a more important time for a person to go deeper on their faith than now. It's been a very volatile year in a lot of different ways. And I think people have done a lot of soul searching. And take out the word religion per se. Yeah. It's the faith, it's the soulful side that people are searching and yearning for. And I think perhaps part of all of this was God's way to slow the universe down, because how the heck could we have continued to operate at such a pace that we had been going? For me personally, I know that I have dived deeper in my own faith and developed my relationship with my God on a much deeper level, and asked a lot more questions about the whys in the last year. But I've also been much more outspoken about that, being comfortable in my own skin of saying, this is who I am and this is what I do, and hopefully you can glean some wisdom, information, regardless of your beliefs, your personal beliefs of whatever they may be, which is fine. We love everyone here at the show. But that's how I've approached it, is going deeper in my own faith, because I know for me, that is the source of my being, a source of my essence. It's a source of everything that I do.
Yeah. Do you think, Todd, that, with COVID too, there's a lot of people who passed away from it, on various levels, and some older, some younger in cases. You get in touch with the realization of your mortality. When we get in touch with that, your spirituality and maybe your relationship with God, higher power, comes to the forefront or focus a little bit more.
No doubt about it. I think anyone listening to this show in the last year has thought about, what if I get it? Will I die?
Yeah.
Or someone, and I know several people who have passed, including one of my college football coaches who was still at William & Mary when he passed in the midst of the pandemic. You definitely are faced with that question. And maybe it's not even the COVID. Maybe it's they've got cancer right now, or maybe they've got a disease right now. In the last year, most everyone on this planet has asked that question, what if I get it? What if I die? That's a deep question to think about the mortality of what next? Do I have my things in order? Right? Am I straight?
Yeah.
And we'll get into some of that, I know, in the 10 forms of wealth. But there's no doubt, listen, the spiritual side and the physical side, those two things you have to have buttoned up. Because if you're not physically fit, healthy, and well, and you're not spiritually nourishing your own soul, then you can't truly operate at your best self if you're denying yourself as a spiritual being.
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, and talking about segueing to the second cornerstone of wealth is physical. And, the gym business, personal training studios, gyms, performance centers, we know. You have talked about it with our people in our mastermind groups and teams. The fitness industry has really taken a blow and adversely impacted by COVID. But let's look at it for people and challenging people. Maybe they've let their programs, their physical and conditioning program, go down. And maybe they've just, for a variety of reasons, just kind of let it go or gain some weight or whatever. Maybe when we look now and trying to get a new rhythm, now that COVID's starting to get behind us, maybe three most important things that a person could do to get back into a consistent program if they've let themselves go to an extent.
Well, number one is the hardest thing, starting. Get back to moving the body. The bodies are designed to move. We must be exercising. It's an imperative. It's a must. So if by chance you're listening in today, I know the Mind Right Maniacs listening in, you're probably exercising while listening to this. Well, maybe you share this episode with someone who needs to get rocking and rolling again. Then do that, because number one, the most important thing is you got to start with that. It all comes down to exercise and training is a foundational aspect to living and being, and it's going to help get the mind right as well. Which the second part is this. I can't tell you the number of people who have reached out who have been exercising throughout the pandemic or are exercising now at the tail end of the pandemic, and are stuck. They're frustrated. They've hit a wall. They're 20 plus pounds over where they want to be or should be. And I think, Larry, that we have been under way more stress than we would even permit ourselves to believing.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I think in another year, they're going to look back and say, wow, our kids and our adults got messed up. Like PTSD meets some bad stuff. There's a lot of undoing that has to be done. And that is why I believe that exercise and physical conditioning is going to be imperative in the recovery process that's going to take years. Not a workout. Although a workout, man, it feels good. Let me tell you what, when I'm slamming a ball right now or swinging a kettlebell or just doing push-ups or going for a walk, it feels good. Can I get an amen? I want to hear you over on the East Coast. I want to hear you right now shout out as someone else is walking by like, oh my God, this guy or this gal is screaming amen. Just tell them you're listening to the dang Impact Show and they're going to get a little fired up and this is a good thing. Why? Because the bottom line is everyone needs that extra inspiration, motivation, and inspiration right now, that empowerment right now. And if you don't have it, find a coach. Get a coach.
Yeah.
I believe coaching. When I say coaching, I'm talking a trainer, perhaps a life coach or a business coach, can give you the poignancy that's necessary and needed to bring back the focus of where we need to be. Nutritionally, physically, mentally, all of these aspects go hand in hand with the physical conditioning side. And then the third and final one is, don't forget, we exercise and we train. We want to have fun with this. It doesn't have to be drudgery every time you work out. Like, oh man, I'm in the basement and it's minus 20 degrees out. And listen, put the gray hoodie on, listen to a podcast like this, and get clanging and banging. Have some fun with it and realize to put a little smile on your face, it feels good to exercise. Get carried away with the end result of how good it feels after a great workout. So those would be some things on the physical side that I would say would be really important to remember why the heck we do what we do, why we exercise.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff to you on that, especially, hey, start again, right? Mm-hmm. Get moving. The third form of mindset. Okay, mindset, which is something that you've emphasized for many years now, and mindset you added into the 10 forms of wealth when you tweaked it over the years. And sometimes two things on mindset, Todd, as far as brain health. I know this is just a little different aspect of mindset. And you hear about gut health that could really impact your brain health. And then some biohacks like meditation, journaling, more sleep, infrared sauna that could improve the health of your brain. What are your thoughts on this connection, either gut health to brain or some of the techniques you've actually talked about to improve your brain health and maybe impact on your mindset?
Let me preface it like this. As Larry's asking these questions, folks, when we talk about the 10 forms of wealth, realize that you can grade yourself on a 1 to 10 scale on every one of these. So 10 is exactly where you want to be. So spiritually, if you are thriving, you're a 10. If you're not very spiritual, you might be at a 1 or 2 or 3 right now. And every month or every day, it's going to fluctuate. And physically and mindset. When I added mindset in a couple of years ago about mindset, and the reason why I share the grading process, because I like to every 30 days take a snapshot of where I'm at, and maybe mindset is a 6 or it's a 9 or it's a 4, but we can look back and see where we're at. Because in my book, Get Your Mind Right, I talk about the importance of mindset. And as the leader of the Mind Right Maniac crew, and as I'm almost about fire breathing dragons, it is very mechanical and methodical about what you have to do in order to get your mind set right. It's a lot of work. And I do a lot of work myself, and it's still not always where I want it to be. And you mentioned a few of the things, with meditation and the early morning routine of journaling. I love journaling. I think journaling is perhaps the most overlooked aspect of getting your mind and spirit right early in the morning to get the clarity on paper so you can be focused on what you want to. But when you look at things like nutrition, the other day, Larry, when I say the other day, I'm talking literally just last week, Melanie had gone to the naturopathic doctor and like a light bulb went off. I'm like, why haven't I done that in the last year? So I just yesterday visited the naturopathic doctor. I love visiting the naturopathic doctor, writing down my blood draw and see where my numbers are at. Because listen, I can willpower it all I want, and I've got a lot of willpower. But physically, you got to be dialed in. Nutritionally, you got to be dialed in. Willpower's got to be dialed in. But also hormonally and all of that has to be dialed in. So the naturopathic doctor could take the blood and see where you're at with all aspects of vitamins, minerals, hormones, and everything, and make sure you're naturally putting into your body what you need to along with these things. How does that affect mindset? It's everything, because it all works together, mind, body, and spirit. So, some of those things I do, and I've shared on this podcast before, some of my best habits and even my worst habits. But from the fish oils to the MCT oils, when you talk about brain health, to the Juve wall, which I try to do 10 minutes a night at night with the red light therapy. I'm not always great at it, but that's been a recent addition of kicking that back in most nights of the week, of sitting in front of that Juve wall, which is red light therapy, which eradicates all of the blue light that's emitted with the amount of time that at least I'm on a phone all day with social media and everything else, but most people I'm speaking to have the same thing. And it all gets back to breath work. Try and do more and more breath work. And there's not a right way to do your quote meditation or breath work. There's days I do more Wim Hof breath work. There's days I do more, I call it tidal breath work, where you're actually like, focusing on your inhale, exhale, like incoming and outgoing tide, and my 5-5-5 breaths. All of these I share in Get Your Mind Right. But one other thing before I move on from mindset. What can really rob you of a positive mindset? Watching the news rob you of a good mindset. Your feed, your social media feed. That's why it's called a feed. What are you being fed? So on your Instagram, your Snapchat, your TikTok, what are you being fed? And if you're like if you're feeling a lot of brain fog and you're not feeling it, be careful what you're being fed on TV, on the news, what you're reading or listening to, all the social media aspects, who you're hanging out with. I sound like a broken record, but it's the truth. If you got to clear up your mindset, all of these little things count. All of it counts, because you don't want stinking thinking. You don't want a negative mindset. So everything from how you train, who you train with, your nutrition, your naturopathic doctor, all the hacks that I've shared in the past, all of it counts.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. And I think it's never any one thing, right?
Right.
And to concentrate on. Now, the next form of wealth, professional, Todd, and I have like a specific question here. At this juncture of your career, after being a trainer, coach, conditioning specialist, etc., I don't want to use the term pick and choose, but you have the ability to choose who you work with now if you're going to actually, train them in their conditioning. So what do you look for? Maybe what factors or criteria do you use now if you're going to take on a new client, be it a professional athlete or maybe just a Joe and Jane?
Are you saying training like as in training in the weight room?
Correct.
Or training coaching for business?
Training in the
mentorship?
weight room. Training in the weight room. Yeah,
Okay.
because there's an element of that obviously you're still doing.
Yeah, because to me, I use the words coaching interchangeably. I'm coaching athletes now. I'm still teaching my Wednesday night class at 6 o'clock. I'm teaching the everyday Joes and Janes of the world, and I'm still coaching a lot of people in my impact coaching and obviously Mastermind program on the business, leadership, and personal growth side. But in the actual, in the trenches, training them, people think, it's probably one of the biggest misconceptions people have of me. They think I only work with pro athletes. I don't. Matter of fact, I actually love working with the everyday population as well. So when you say pick and choose, honestly, it comes down to how bad does someone want to get better. And if they want to train and it's a high school kid and they're serious, I get as much satisfaction at working with a young guy or gal that I would with a pro athlete who's had an illustrious career. Throughout the pandemic, the tail end of this pandemic, I worked with 5 field hockey players from Dartmouth at 7 o'clock at night and loved it. These girls wanted to train. They wanted to be here. They needed it as much mentally as they did physically, and I loved it. People are like, wait a second, you're training these gals that are field hockey players. You don't know anything about field hockey. I'm like, I know something about getting better. I know something about a mindset to what it takes to become a champion and to do breath work and meditation. And I love that. The same way I love on my Wednesday nights when at the end of the class I do a meditation with my people and they're like, can we do more of that? Can we get a half hour of that? So to me, while the outside world might say I pick and choose who I want to work with, to me, when someone comes to me and says, I want to work with you, the whole thing of me is like, if that person, guy or gal, I don't care how old they are, from a kid all the way up to Pastor Jay who's 80, tells me they want to get better, then I want to get them better.
Okay. That's pretty clear right there. That's the criteria you use.
Yeah.
The next form of wealth is interesting because it gets to the point. You had mentioned a book periodically recently, who, not how. Who, not how. And I think this area here is our financial wealth. And in particular, you have advisors, financial advisors that you use, maybe area of real estate, investments, insurance, legal, that you've worked with. What have you learned from working with these professionals in the process? And has it been about the who, not how? You don't have to know all the details of all this stuff. You rely on some of these people. And has it been a great experience for you? And what have you, maybe the 3 most tangible benefits you've gained from working with these folks?
Well, I think there's a common thought process here that you have to get to a certain level before you start working with, quote, financial experts. And I remember reading the book from Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect, in the early 2000s. And I love that book. I actually got that book on audio as well. And I remember going out, like you're listening to this podcast right now, walking on your neighborhood, and the sun is beating on you right now. I can feel it. But you're like fired up. I remember thinking, man, if I can just start investing a little bit of money every month, then I can actually accumulate wealth over time. And it wasn't like hitting a home run of a product or a show or, you know, a certain level of business success. That success was accrued over time. And when you study the Warren Buffetts of the world and some of the wealthiest people, it's discipline with your finances as well. So one of the things that I use now is it's called a B.A.I.L team, and you know Dr. Frank Pucher. Frank, we talk about this in the Mastermind all the time. Who's on your B.A.I.L team? And your B.A.I.L team is your banker/investment advisor, your accountant. You need a good accountant. The I is your insurance broker, and your L is your lawyer, right? And potentially landlord if you're a business owner, right? But a lawyer as well. So as you get, quote, a little more sophisticated, your B.A.I.L team may come a little more sophisticated. But that being said, I remember the first guy I started working with from a financial side, he said, I was all excited to start investing a little bit of money and starting a 401k. He's like, okay, the first thing we're going to do is get life insurance. I was like, that doesn't sound too exciting to me. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get life insurance. He's like, yes, we need to make sure that you're properly insured. I'm like, well, that doesn't make me any money. Like, I don't want all this insurance. He said, well, one of the first things you can do is actually start protecting your assets, even though, at that point you don't have that many assets. You got to protect your house, your family, and looking ahead, what are you worth now? What are you going to be worth in 5 years from now? We're going to get life insurance for that. I'm like, wait a second, I wanted to start investing in companies and make money. So that's why we have our who's on our team. Because if it was me, I probably would have went to my E-Trade and started investing, penny stocks again, like I did when I was in graduate school trying to make some money. But when you're around the right people, they advise you properly. And now the financial advisor who I work with, we have quarterly meetings and we look at everything. How's the 401k doing? Do we need to, tweak certain investments in that? And the one thing I'd say is that I'm disciplined and in my finances, and that over time will hopefully allow things to continue to grow and get better. So that you could be in a financial situation that will allow you to do the things that you want to do based on the goals that you have. So that's how I look at it now. And the other thing too, I'll add, Larry, is even recently, my 16-year-old son Brady, he said, Dad, I want to start a 401. He said, I want to start a Roth IRA. I'm like, well, let's get Buddy on the phone and let's talk about your options and how you do that, because Brady, has been reading the compound effect.
And wants to he's very entrepreneurial.
He wants
Brady.
Entrepreneurial. He's like, if I could put away $100 a month starting now, I'm like, you're absolutely right. You're way ahead of the game, because I didn't start till I was like in my early to mid 30s, even thinking about this. I didn't. And what I'm always telling the team at Fitness Quest 10 or here with TDE is like, if you put away $10 a month or $100 a month, it can go a long way over time, and the sooner you start, the better. So anyway, long story short, I would say this. You talked about, a couple things, three tangible benefits maybe, is do have regular meetings. It's not like invest money and forget about it, even though you should, regardless of whether the market's up or down, have regular investments, is meet with your person or your team if you have one. The second thing would be remember about it's not just about how much you make money-wise, it's how much you keep. And that comes into expenses. when you look at your portfolio, or you look at your spreadsheet in your business, where are your expenses at, and where are you needlessly spending? It could be you're eating out too frequently, or you're always at Starbucks and you're dropping an extra $100 a month, which could be going into an investment fund in some way, and that's having the discipline to do that. And then the third aspect I would say when it comes to finances, on that, is continually have discussions on finances with people who are smarter than you. Because I know that I don't study the markets like these guys study the markets who are on my team. I honestly don't even really enjoy that aspect of that, but I do want to talk to people who are smarter than me and say, is any money that I'm investing doing good stuff, and do I believe in what they're investing in? Like, if they tell me I'm going to make a lot of money in a project, but I don't believe fundamentally in that project, then I'm not going to invest in that project, because I don't care about the whatever that fund may be investing in. So I want to believe in that in my fundamental core values as well.
Good stuff. And keeping on the theme of team, the next area of wealth, family. Okay, family wealth, Todd. And really just three basic questions here. You've been married to Melanie now for 20-year mark. You're at the 20-year mark of your marriage. What do you find the most challenging now, being a husband at 20 years, as opposed to 5-year mark or 10-year mark? And then second part is, what area of being a dad do you find most challenging? Because now you've got high schoolers and Luke going off to college.
Yeah. The most challenging thing now is time. It's time. And you think that it's like, well, wait a second, we're in a pandemic and we're at home all the time. I don't know where all the time goes, but everyone's busy, and I'm busy, and Mel's busy, and the kids are busy, and it's not even a normal situation. Like, the kids are just going back into school now. And I say time, I'm talking about time doing quality things. Like, I told my wife Melanie yesterday, I just want to get in a car again and go for a drive, like up the coast, because I love time in the car where I can talk to Melanie on that. We don't need necessarily fancy vacations. I love just the time, like quality time with her, and that takes some discipline to put it in the calendar, because if it doesn't get planned, it doesn't get done, because I either have an event or something I got to do, or the kids have an event. So I'd say on that side is meaningful getaways, or just time that actually is meaningful, including date nights and things like that. And with the kids, same thing, time. It's because Luke is going away. He's going to school down in Davidson, North Carolina, this summer, as he prepares for football in August, and then school, in the fall here, is just the time to have meaningful conversations with, for me, 3 kids is, I find it challenging now, is because, they always want to be with their friends that. And that's cool. I love that. But I love and cherish, we have our dinners together and we're all together, or after a football game, or now a lacrosse game as well, where we can all be together as a team of 5 and just talk about family and about fun stuff and upcoming vacations and things like that.
Yeah, especially after COVID, games were canceled, seasons were canceled, and it's like a lot of that stuff that we took for granted, you weren't able to do. Now that's coming back to that it's possible to do that. You probably could cherish them even more.
Another thing challenging wise that I would say, it's not necessarily for me, but all you parents out there, your ears are going to perk up. It's the challenge of kids and social media. Meaning, man, it is hard with TikTok, Snapchat, IG. Those are the big 3. That kids are just on their phones all the time. That's how they communicate now. They don't even text. They just message each other through Snapchat and these messages. And it's like, sometimes I feel like, man, people are walking around like a bunch of robots, and they're on their phones all the time. So when you ask about a challenge, I'm like, wait a second, what's it going to be like when my son Luke goes off to college and he's supposed to be studying for an economics exam,
Yeah.
and all the R's getting blown up on your social media. We're living in in a world of distraction right now. And guys, obviously adults, we're the same. We're just as bad, right? But I'm like, man, these kids, they're 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, and they're like so distracted from actual connecting with people. And this is a reality. My own kids are as guilty as anyone else is. I'm saying that because this is something I see. I'm like, man, like this is a challenge as a parent of like, what are you gonna do? Take their phone from them? And that, now what I am considering is like, when we're going away, we're gonna go to the Jersey Shore, fist bump all you Jerseyites this summer, a couple vacations in planning, is like, I want to, like, when they get on the plane, take their phone from them, say, okay, including me, we're not gonna have phones for a week. Okay, nothing, no social media. And they would be the first to say, yeah, Dad, give me your phone too. And I'd be like, having tremors, right? But it's the truth. It's like, this is a real, can I get an amen, anyone out there? Like, this is real. But it's a blessing. Like right now, most of you are listening to this through a phone. But there's times when you got to turn it off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you definitely do, man. That's a different perspective.
Anyway, different insight.
Again, geez, it seems like we're on the, things that involve teams here, but it does in life. A form of wealth, circle of genius / social, number 7, How big should one's circle of genius be? Is there an optimal number? Is it all about work? Is it kids? Is it faith as far as your circle of genius? And do you find the circle of genius expanding maybe to other couples in this junction of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think circle of genius is, who are you hanging out with? Who's your social life, if you've got a social life? Many people have not had the social life they had pre-COVID. But circle of genius is who are you hanging out with, who are you being influenced by, because everyone that you hang out with, you learn from, you listen to, is impacting the way you think, the way you operate. I don't think there is an ideal number. It could be small, it could be large. I think it can come in waves as well. I do think there's also different aspects of life and your circle of genius. I've got business mentors to this day that if I got business stuff going on, I'll call them and I would consider them mentors. Yeah. I also have spiritual advisors and spiritual mentors who I work closely with and have throughout the pandemic, including couples. When on Tuesday nights we have a Bible study chapel service every Tuesday night, and have done that throughout the pandemic. And come hell or high water, I'm getting on that, including if I have to leave practice early, I'm not missing Bible study because I know how important it is that I get with those other couples on that stuff. So to me, the circle of genius, there's different aspects of life and living that you have. But if you're looking to up level your life, then I think you need to really look closely at who is your circle of influence. Who is your social circle? Who is your professional circle? Are you having conversations that are lifting your thought process up? And it doesn't necessarily have to be live. Like possibly this podcast. And I've heard this from feedback. Like, you've made me think differently about certain aspects of my life, either my faith or my fitness or my business. Fantastic. Then guess what? Then I or any of the guests I brought on have become part of your circle of genius. Or your circle of social, depending on that. So it doesn't have to mean necessarily that we're hanging out, having a protein shake together.
That's right? A great point, though, because a lot of times people in our mastermind consider the mastermind as their social 100%. Part of their social genius. So that's a great point.
100%.
The next one, number 8. Adventure, form of wealth, and especially during COVID, you had to be real creative in what adventure was going to be. I know you like the mountains, but being able to get around, get away. COVID had many challenges, but maybe for you, your sense of adventure, where's your outlet, and the importance of having a sense of adventure in your wealth.
Yeah, out of the 10 forms of wealth that we have, I've always been the worst in number 8, adventure, because if I don't plan adventure, I don't take adventure. Like I admit that here on the show. Is like, if I don't plan it, I just don't do a lot of adventurous stuff. I work and I have family time, which that could be an adventure into itself. But the adventure aspect to me is I've got to purposely plan adventure, because adventure is so important in living. Yeah. It's in getting away, getting the B.A.I.L time, having fun. So I actually do consider myself adventurous because I plan for it. But if I don't plan for it, I don't get it. So you talk about mountains. On that, I love the mountains. I love getting away on that. But one of the things I did during the pandemic, which I along with everyone else, had the plan for adventure. I started doing these adventure Sundays with my daughter McKenna. And these adventure Sundays, I knew she was loving them because she'd start asking like on Friday, "Hey Dad, what are we doing for Adventure Sunday this Sunday?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, good. My dad had is going good because we're building an adventure, just her and I. And guess what? We're not going to talk football during Adventure Sunday. This is her time because all she hears about with her two older brothers is football or lacrosse. This was her designated time and still is on Sundays. And we have Adventure Sunday to talk about whatever she wants to talk about, or life, or about soccer on that. So Adventure Sunday or adventure could be in big or small forms. That's an example of a small thing. So we go out and have, a pancake breakfast where I'm flipping Jersey pancakes, and we're gonna go out for a drive together, or go to the beach and take Jersey out. And it's just a few hours together. Adventure could be big or small. Bottom line is this: as a spirit, we all need adventure in our life. As a spirit, we all need adventure in our life. And what kind of adventure are you building into your life? Perhaps you're like me, and it's really difficult to do it. It's imperative, in order to have your spirit awakened, to get out and make sure that we build it into our life. If you're not, you feel stuck, stalled, frustrated, you're tired, you're literally frustrated that you're not having fun. You're just working. You're working 5 days a week, or 6 days a week, or just 7 days a week. So you got to build adventure in your life, and that's why I do my 10 forms of adventure, 10 forms of wealth, and build in goals, 2-3 goals in the adventure category of what can I do this month to make sure I have some adventure in my life.
Yeah, good stuff. Moving on here, we're almost getting to the end, and the number 9, the love, L-O-V-E, form of wealth. Yeah, really important. And you heard the phrase, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. And Todd, you've talked about it before as far as knowing your love language. The Gary Chapman book, The 5 Love Languages. In Melanie knowing your love language and you knowing Melanie's, how has that helped your love relationship?
So number 9, love, as far as that's concerned, let's not forget the reason why I added mindset and love into the 10 forms of wealth is because of the guy that we both love, John Wooden, UCLA basketball coach John Wooden, and was asked on his 99th birthday if there was one word that you left out of the pyramid of success, what would it be? And without hesitation, he said, the only word, I wouldn't change anything about the pyramid of success, but the word I left out was the word love, and that word love should be smack in the middle of that pyramid, because there's no way I would have won 10 national championships at UCLA without loving my players or loving what I do. So I'm like, that's deep. That's deep. Yeah. So it's like looking at love in your life, whether it be a love relationship or a passion that you love to do. If you were to grade yourself on a 1 to 10 scale and love, where is that? You ask about Melanie. And what I'd say is this, and to bring it full circle with the love languages, is I've shared multiple times before from that book, I'm a guy who loves words of affirmation. Every now and then, an attaboy or attagirl goes a long way. When you're a leader, a lot of times it's a lonely ship because you don't get a lot of that. It's how you're feeding your team and doing everything else, and that's the way it should be. But I know from a man who thrives on words of affirmation, when I hear from a text or a DM or an email from someone, even for something like this podcast, that a certain message went and hit me a little differently, I read all those. They make a difference. Melanie recently shared with me that she changed her love language.
Oh, interesting.
I'm like, you can't do that. She goes,
not allowed.
Not allowed. You can't do that. She said, I absolutely can. I said, well, why have you changed? Because I actually liked her love language. It was time. That she wanted my time. Maybe because of the pandemic, she's getting my time now, and now she's decided to change her love language. I said, what do you mean you've changed your love language? She goes, I've changed to acts of service. I'm like, darn it. Does that mean I got to do more things around the house? Right? Being real here. We keep it real here around the Impact Show. As y'all laugh. Hey, fellas, get your mind right. Ladies, can I get an amen on that? So I said, what do you mean by that? Acts of service. She goes, you know what? I get a lot of satisfaction in doing like home improvements and like, painting the house. Just had the house paint. I'm like, why would we paint the inside of a house? That could be the worst thing. She goes, are you kidding me? It brings me so much joy. I'm like, how can painting the inside of your house bring you joy? I think we should go get another house. I think let's talk to our financial guy, right? So the point is this, is acts of service is when she's doing things for the home, and that's her nest. She finds a lot of love around the home when we're having dinner at the table, or her environment feels good. She feels loved. And for me, I'm like, as long as I have a bed to sleep on and food in the fridge, I'm cool. But that's not my love language. My love language is words of affirmation of, hey, Todd, I appreciate you, doing whatever, or you creating another book, or doing that talk, or whatever it may whatever it may be. Words of affirmation are mine. So for her, folks, yes, you can change your love language if you'd like to. So Gary Chapman, we'll have a chat about that. But my wife Melanie, she recently changed it from time to acts of service.
And your greatest one, your love language?
Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation. Okay, awesome. Last one, Todd, and perhaps this is one you added when you first started looking at constructing a wealth series back in 2010, as many people know, when you came out with your book, The Impact Body Plan. And I might add to the listeners that I have the original first book of the Impact Body Plan.
Great point.
And you actually, that was the first book you ever signed. And that's a different discussion, maybe a different show.
I'm like, how did you get that book before me?
I know, I still have it. But that's when impact and that whole initiative and that whole mantra and your whole movement and your purpose came out. So the last wealth is impact/legacy. And it is... you hear the term energy shift, Todd. How does one create greater levels of fulfillment in life and to create more impact when we actually look at this area of wealth?
I like that word, energy shift. I think it's very... it resonates with a lot of people now, because I think there's a lot of people going through energy shifts because of the times that we live in. I think people are discovering a new norm, whatever that norm is. And while all of us want to get back to a certain level of normalcy, we realize that there are opportunities to create a new reality as well. So energy shifts, when you talk about, is it a conscious thing? Is it because of an event? I think it could be a little bit of both. I think that the pandemic certainly has created an energy shift in people in a lot of ways, good and bad. But I also think that energy shifts occur in different seasons of life that all of us walk in. And when I say different seasons of life, I think the deeper one really tries to explore their heart and soul and their purpose and ask the question, what is my life all about? What am I about? That I think that creates a frank, real discussion with oneself. And that requires a come to Jesus moment of, am I going to be who I truly am supposed to be? Or am I going to just keep doing what I'm doing if that's not what you're supposed to be doing? So there's a lot of people right now who feel trapped. They feel trapped because, man, they can't make that shift or that move to really what they want to do because of a paycheck or because life is good, but they know there's more there. That's all real stuff. But there's people who are there who are feeling this deep tickle to do something differently, but they're scared as heck. And they don't know if they should do that. And I think when you have energy shifts, if over months and even years, if you have a calling that keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper, sooner or later, you got to answer the call. You got to answer the bell, and you got to say, you know what? I've got to take this risk. And if that means giving it all up, everything that's ever been created by you, perhaps there might be a time and a day that happens. Otherwise, I do believe that sometimes life is happening for you or to you, right? Is this happening for me or to me? It's happening for you. Is this injury happening for you or to you? Perhaps it's happening so that you can slow down enough to listen to your whispers to say, I'm going to craft up this change. So if you're going through something today, ask yourself, is this happening for me or to me? I'm going to encourage you to say it's happening for me. so that I can be the person I'm supposed to be as you welcome in whatever it is. And even if it's adversity or challenge or strife, disappointment, like how can I use this to be part of the energy shift that'll ultimately shift me to where I'm supposed to be in life? Now, I know that's deep. I know that's somewhat, philosophical, but it's the truth. And even as a man who's sitting here in this new HQ that we've had a few episodes at now, is like this was created and manifested because of energy shifts.
Yeah.
Right. This was energy shifts over the last, not since the pandemic, but starting 3 years prior to that, when a lot of my energy was going to more podcasting, live events, speaking, coaching, not just Fit Pros in the Mastermind, but through impact coaching and all the coaching I was doing, and people reaching out saying, hey, can you help me with my business or my personal growth so that I can get unstuck because I feel like I'm stuck or stalled or frustrated. I can't get to that next level. All of this was created because of energy shifts, because of a new season in life. And I've shared this before multiple times, even in 2020 alone, is when I say the best is yet to come, I believe that's an attitude and a philosophy that all of us need to have, is whatever you're going through, the energy shifts happen, and we need to learn to embrace them, even when they're really tough. Because sometimes there's an energy shift and you're like, I don't really want this to shift like this.
Yeah.
I'm scared of this.
Yeah.
That's real talk. But what has to happen is you got to make sure that those voices that are speaking to you are your voices and not other people's voices. Because if you're responding to everyone else's voices, not your own, then you're living other people's lives and not your own. At the end of the day, you got to go to bed with who you really are. And that gets deep. Who are you? Who are you? And are your actions lined up with your core values of what you stand for, what you believe in, and who you are?
Wow. Well, Todd, there's no more forms of wealth left. That was it. Impact and legacy. That was number 10, appropriately.
Yep.
And perhaps there's a series of tweaks in the future. You never know with this, but so far, over the past 11, 12, 13 years, this has held us in good stead and something we do every month.
To lead with action steps, I always love action, is this, Larry, as we just discussed the 10 forms of wealth. The follow-up from that obviously is what, the 1 in 30 or the 3 in 30.
Yeah.
If you could take this and put one goal in each of those 10 areas and literally take action on it, then you're going to be better off in 30 days from now. Now, this is something I do with the Mastermind, and you help lead the way with this, and I do it with my impact coaching. I share it in my Get Your Mind Right book. The bottom line is, though, most people heard it and feeling inspired right now, but most people won't do it. Yeah. Most people won't do it. If you want to get better and you truly want to get your business or your life to the next level, you take a 10 forms of wealth exercise like this. You take action. You put a goal in each of those 10 areas, and I'll put all of them in the show notes. So check out the show notes. Give me some feedback if you're checking out the show notes and you like it. You'll have the 10 forms of wealth. If you take action on that, I promise you, if you commit to at least one. I do 3 goals. You do at least 1 goal in each of those 10 forms of wealth. I promise you, in 30 days from now, you're going to drop me an email, you drop me a DM, and you're going to let me know that 2 or 3 areas of the 10 forms of wealth got magnified. And at the end of the day, if we keep doing that month after month, year after year, and now it's a decade later, your life is going to look far different in a few years from now than it does today, at least more congruent, where we're getting everything out to the outside of the wheel. 10 forms of wealth is when you say, hey, Todd, I want to get my life more balanced. I want it to flow more fluidly. And I'm going to tell you that balance is a myth, and I'm going to debunk it. But I am going to say that as we get closer out to the outer of the wheel, that our life does find more fulfillment, and more fulfillment is created and manifested. And to me, it's very, very methodical in the sense of all of these 10 forms of wealth that I've put together and created. And it's an exercise, it's a plan that one can use starting today in order to achieve more impact. Yeah. There you go. What do you think, Larry? Good?
Well, it's the answers that you make on all these 10 forms of wealth questions, right? And, you know, we went through and, you know, had some questions on each one of those.
Yeah.
And then you answered everyone. So the magic in the answers always.
I always appreciate you being here, Larry. Thank you for those questions on the 10 forms of wealth. Folks, do that. Check out the show notes. Please, as always, share this episode if it was of value to you, because the only thing I want to make sure I do is that every day when I'm speaking to you, that your heart, your soul is a little more on fire. Until next time, remember, train hard, eat right, live inspired, and go create impact today.